not a YouTuber, just like making videos. And a lot of people have been anticipating this video right here. Cooning versus constructive criticism. You know, the wait is finally over. Now we're going to get down to the nitty gritty. You know what I'm saying? We're going to cut this baby open and see what falls out. And, you know, let's get it all there. Let's get it all out there in the open. Let's talk about it. Because what I'm seeing here, there's been a whole lot of misinformation. You know what I'm saying? People are you know what I'm saying, are very one-sided in how they think, you know, and they're just trying to push an agenda. And a lot of people are just, they're opportunists, you know, and so forth. So, you know what I'm saying, let's get it. Let's get into it. First of all, let's go into cooning. Cooning, you know, what is cooning? You know, it's like the word doesn't even mean anything anymore. People have a coon hair trigger. You know, first I thought a cooning was just a buck dancing Negro who acted like an uneducated gimp, you know, and so forth, who don't have a grasp on reality, don't have grasp on the English language, you know. Then they switch a coon up. Now it's somebody that can be educated, speak with proper diction, kind of have these sort of conservative views, kowtow towards white people, you know, use white people or racist white people's talking points. And some people say a coon is a ignorant, a thug, you know, black people that are just, you know what I'm saying, that wants to riot or whatever, are engaged in reckless criminal behavior. So I don't know what the hell a coon is. You know, tomorrow they're going to have another definition for a coon. You know, and it's going to be a dude who's a schizophrenic, who just walks around in circles and just talks to himself incoherently, and that will be a coon. You know, so it has lost meaning. But I would say that, you know what I'm saying, before the age of social media, you know what I'm saying, a coon, Uncle Tom or whatever, their thoughts and their opinions was considered very distasteful, you know, by the popular consensus of the black community. But with the rise of social media, you know, and you know what I'm saying, people, you know, you first of all, you got the I don't know if I want to call them the so-called career coons, you know, people that are just you know, made a name for themselves on social media. And then you have these people with these kind of sporadic videos that go viral, you know, you have these kids saying stuff like black people are the most violent people, black people kill each other, and so forth, you know, and it gained a lot of traction. A white person said to me, you know, this is what a white person said, that you can't criticize the black community without being called a racist. That, you know what I'm saying, there's like this barrier around the black community, that the black community is, you know, it's hypersensitive about certain things. You know, no, people criticize the black community all the time. They make fun of the black community. They exploit the black community. So just like I said, in this dissertation here, I'm not going to leave nothing out. We're going to, a lot of things are going to be talked about. First of all, I would like to say that white people are racist. You know, maybe your racism is in their DNA. You know, they got a glacial mind state. And they exploited all avenues of racism. You know, whether it's they're racist on an entertainment level, you know, making racist jokes in cartoons, whether they're racist on an economic level, on the political level, or on a sexual level. So therefore, because they benefit from it, you know what I'm saying, they've profited, they made money off of it, and things. I'm not talking about every single white person, but I'm just talking about, you know, just the bulk of the population is racist in some ways. And nobody should subscribe to the thought that white is always right. You know, and that's the problem with a lot of the, what we consider the coons, the bootlickers. You know, just look at it as right is right and wrong is wrong. You know, and you know what I'm saying. And then when there's a certain occurrence that pops off, some sort of casualty, you know, where a white person shoots a black person that's unarmed, just look at the facts and have a, you know what I'm saying, sometimes have an unbiased outlook or opinion. You know, and that's the thing. And pro-blacks also need to recognize this too, of that sometimes, you know, black people, you know, they make their own bed. You know, they make their own bad decisions, and they have to, you know, feel the deal with the repercussions. You know, and you know what I'm saying. But I understand that, you know what I'm saying, a lot of the so-called coons, you know, they take advantage of an opportunity. They look at a situation, always find, you know, there's a fault with the black person and what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? You can see something as clear as day, and then they'll try to switch up the angle and be like, well, did you see that? No, you didn't see that. I seen this. You know who I think is the problem here? The problem here is somebody you don't see on the camera. Yeah, the problem is this person's mother. You know, so there. But is a lot of their criticism of the black community, is it valid? You know, and now it seems like the black community, if you give the black community, blow some sort of smoke up the black community's ass, that they will deem you some sort of coon, some sort of traitor, and so forth. As I said before, they're on a coon hair trigger. You know, black people are hypersensitive about certain issues, and certain issues they just completely ignore. Now, the concept of black on black crime, as I like to dub it now, the intra-violence in the black community, is the elephant in the room. We can't get around it. You know, we're going to have to talk about it. It's just how it is. Now, when people bring up, you know what I'm saying, when you have an authoritarian figure that slays an unarmed black man and is not justified, of course, black people are going to get riled up, and then people will bring up, what about black on black violence, and you know, and so forth. And yes, those people are being disingenuous, because we should always have this conversation about the intra-violence in the black community. But people are seeing the amount of energy and this temporary unification amongst black people when we see an unarmed black kid plowed down in the streets. You know, whether it's by a white officer or a black officer or some, you know, someone that is supposedly to protect us. You know, that's how Black Lives, you know, Matter started. And people are saying, well, why can't they focus their energy on this, you know, this gang activity and so forth? You know, these killings in the streets. You know, and that is legitimate. You know, if you're pro-black, then you're for black people, and you should be for the progress of black people and the and raising the standard of living in the black community. I know a lot of people consider the black community just a freaking black hole that they have to escape from. You know, just like those movies. If you ever seen that movie Menace to Society or Clockers, you know, at the end of the movie, our protagonist there, you know, he's trying to get away from that mayhem. He's trying to go to a whole nother environment and so forth, because that, you know, the black community is it's like stalemate. You know, and that's the thing. comes to the intra-violence in the black community, you know, people will say that, well, white people, they kill themselves too. You know, most people, you know what I'm saying, create murder within their respective ethnic group. That's true, but doing my research, black people are like nine times most likely to be victims of homicides than whites. That's a whopping number. You know what I'm saying? Blacks are killing each other at the pace of a third world nation. It's unacceptable. It's inexcusable. You know, the thing is, we have become desensitized to it. It's become normalized in the black community. You know, because we listen to rap songs, we watch movies, it's like, we're just like, we look at it as, oh, that's just the way it is, or we feel that if we can change the economic conditions, you know, it will stop the bloody murder. And the thing is, if black people are these gods and these kings and queens like we claim to be, then, you know, I'm like, we should be able to be peaceful amongst ourselves. Even if there's no jobs, even if everybody is tin can poor, we should be able to get along. We did back in the days. Matter of fact, they stated that back when people used to, we're talking about back in the 20s and 30s, people will say that, man, how can people so poor be so happy? You know, that's the thing. And, you know, I understand that we weren't happy because we, you know, we created blues music, but, you know, we somewhat can get along and have a good laugh back then. Now it's chaotic, and now it's like, you know what I mean, I'm like, there's jobs out here. I'm like, well, what do black people want? You know what I mean? I'm like, you go to school, you get a trade, you get a skill, you work hard. I'm like, even the President Barack Obama stated that you got to work hard in life. So it's almost like, you know, if black people, if things aren't perfect in the black community, if just one thing is out of place, it's like, oh, well, we just got to shoot up the place. You know, we don't got a community center. Look how they're treated. It's like blacks are making some of these degenerates, these miscreants are somewhat just making excuses or whatever. And ultimately, they're only harming themselves. You know, they're not harming the white man. You know, because the white man got an answer for you. You know, so, and this is why I support the snitching campaign. You know, we need to start snitching. And this doesn't mean that we must become buddy-buddy with police officers. You know, this doesn't mean like we have to be like the RZA, invite police officers in our house for some milk and cookies. It just means that, hey, you know, just cooperate and make the cops do their job. Think about it as Eddie Murphy in 48 Hours. You know how he got out of jail and he worked with that, who was it, Nick Nolte, and Eddie Murphy didn't like him, but, you know what I mean, that he used his alliance with him because Eddie Murphy, his character, whatever his character was in that movie, wanted something. You know, and that's the thing. So yeah, I'm like, that's, you know, I'm like, and stop thinking that black people are innocent. Like when they talk about the mass incarceration of black people, when they say the war on drugs is the war on blacks. Yes, some of that is true, but it doesn't help the situation when there's blacks that are selling drugs, that are in gangs. I'm like, we see it, and rappers talk about it. We see on Instagram, watch DJ Academic's channel. We got black dudes holding guns in the camera, and you know what I'm saying, they surround themselves with weed. I'm like, they're just involved with all sorts of apish behavior and so forth. You know, and it's hard for people to feel sorry for them, because as a, you know what I'm saying, they have, as a human being and not a beast. You know, you should be able to make conscious decisions. And a lot of people just like being bad because it feels good, because of the money, wilding out, you know, sex, violence, and murder. You know, and that's the thing. That's why when you go into black clubs, black strip clubs or whatever, they pat you down. You know, I went to a black establishment the other day, and you know what I mean, I felt like I was going to the airport. You know, pat me down. They made me take off my hat, and I don't like taking off my hat. But I understand the procedures. You know, this is for my safety, because some knuckleheads went up in there and shot the place up. You know, they're not taking any risk. You know, they know. So therefore, let's get out this mind state that black people are these innocent victims. Yes, we're victims of systematic racism and so forth, but we have to ask ourselves, why do some black people excel and others don't? I saw this story about this black kid who came from a broken home, terrible home. He was doing his homework on a subway, and then ended up getting into an Ivy League college. Instead of putting a lot of emphasis on these knuckle dragging slewfoots out here, you know, these hunchback quadrupods, you know, let's put emphasis on people that's trying to do well. And as much as people want to remember the name of Sandra Bland and Freddie Gray, let's remember the name of Hidea Pendleton, the black female who performed at Obama's inauguration, you know, played band or something like that, who was hit by a stray bullet, because you know these criminals, they couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. So there's a lot of casualties in the black community, and a lot of innocent people are going to have to suffer. And I'm just sick of these pro-blacks, you know, or these people that claim to be pro-black, Afrocentrics, taking up for these guys, feeling, you know, looking the other way, ignoring it. You know, the same way we can say the bootlickers, you know what I'm saying, the coons or whatever, you know what I mean, blatantly ignore racism and so forth. But right now, racism, it will be a problem that we'll have to tackle on an academic level, on a political level. You know, that's gonna take a long hard work. But looking at the complete disarray of a lot of black communities, you know, I'm like, and it seems like people aren't even lifting a finger. They're not even budging. They feel that, oh, if we tackle racism and white supremacy, this over here will go away. I'm sorry, but realistically, you know, if the white man removes his authority from the black community and says, okay, you guys are on your own, you know, it's going to be a whole lot of murder and mayhem. You know, we've seen that. We've seen when cops say, hey, okay, we're not going to do nothing, and we see the murder rate spike. You know, because we haven't learned to police ourselves. And even when we do police ourselves, we're going to have to do it with the cooperation of the police officers. You know, as they say, we cuff them, you stuff them. You know, we can't just say, hey, cops, don't come here, we got this. In the black community, we do have a lot of people that are on welfare, you know, on food stamps, get a lot of assistance from the government. So therefore, you can't just sit up there and say, hey, well, you know, we don't want the cops patrolling it, we'll do it ourselves. No, it's not a Native American reservation. It doesn't work like that. The best thing you can do is cooperate with the police until you see some sort of results. And the thing is, it's just like this. Black people care more about how white people treat them than they treat themselves. Black people want everybody to care for them, you know, but blacks don't take care of themselves. I know that I'm generalizing here. I'm not saying in all instances, but that's just how it is. You know, and in a lot of ways, that's also a slave mentality. As we say that when a black person acts like a Steven, you're still trapped in slavery. But if you sit around and you look at, you know what I'm saying, because black people aren't exactly getting along to the level that they should be. You know, and if you just constantly sit around and worry about what white people are doing, how white people are treating you, are looking for the approval or acceptance of white people, that's also very much slave-minded. You know, and that's the thing. And that's what I see with the coons and the pro-blacks. Coons the so-called coons, a lot of them, not all of them want a pat on their head. There are certain people that they're very heavy-handed with their criticism of the black community, but they just don't give a fuck about white people, you know. But to sit around and ignore the deplorable culture of black people, because we have adapted, you know, this culture, and we have not created a smart enough, no, I'm saying, or a big enough counter culture. You know, we got these militant groups, we got the Nation of Islam, but in a lot of ways they justify some of the malarkey going on, or we want to tip our glass because of, you know what I mean, because two gang factions, you know, have a temporary truce. But what are you going to do to better the standard of living inside the black community? What are we going to wait for until white people try to treat us fairly? White people don't have all the answers. White people are not the standard to look up to. You know what I'm saying? They got a lot of problems with themselves. You know, I'm like, you know what I'm saying? White people can't help us. You know, and white people are going to, why are you expecting somebody who's the apex predator? You know, I'm like, a wolf is always going to be a wolf. You know, so therefore, it's really up to us. You know, I'm like, white people are going to be racist. You know, and so forth. But it seems like black people, a lot of black people are playing devil's advocate. You know, and just as we can call somebody who's a bootlicker or someone that uses white people's talking points a coon, we could also say somebody that goes out here, robs people, kills people, you know what I mean, act like a complete moron, act like a complete degenerate, can also be a coon. Because now it's like it's up for interpretation. That's all I want to say. Thanks for watching. Never stop learning.